Good morning, everyone. This is a meeting of the regular Commissioners Tuesday hearing. Let's begin with the pledge. Those who can stand, please do. Mr. Dahl, would you lead the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So at this point, I want to advise the public that KLTV is having trouble with our feed. We are doing a Zoom recording and we post that on our website. So I've decided we will continue to have the meeting, and at some point KLTV may get up or not. So those people at home, I don't know how to communicate with them, but I'm really reluctant to violate the start time of our meeting. At this point, let me ask, not sure how to do that without a third member, but let me announce that Dennis is on vacation. We won't see him today. At this point, we should go over the minutes. I have gone over the minutes. Maybe Mr. Dahl would address whether he wants to make a motion or not.
Yeah, I've looked at them also and would move to approve the minutes from the January 10th, 2023 meeting.
Does that include a motion?
Yes.
I must have missed it. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the minutes of the activities last week. The floor is now open to any citizen comments. Let me remind everybody that you're not obligated to state your name or anything of that nature. You just come up and speak, hopefully in an orderly fashion. But other than that, well, I do ask that you stay on the topic. Sometimes it's rambles off into the weeds. There will be a time when people can speak to the motion item itself, and then at the end, people can speak about any topic that wasn't discussed earlier. So anybody wish to comment on the minutes? I see no hands. I see nobody. Let's take a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So the motion passes. And now an event occurred last week where one of the citizens speaking had great concerns over the recording of documents and the inability to find those documents. I hope Carolyn Fundingsland is here. She asked for some special time, and I think that is absolutely in order to have her speak to that issue. Would you like to do so now? There you go.
Good morning.
Don't tell us about your sunshine, okay?
Actually, my husband is visiting and he brought the rain with him. It rained 2.5 inches last night. The washes are full. It's, yeah. And he's leaving tomorrow and the sunshine's coming back. Go figure. Hey, I really appreciate the opportunity today to address some comments that were made in last week's meeting regarding document recording fees and the accessibility of public records. So I wanted to start by giving just a real brief breakdown on document recording fees that are collected and where they go. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. Document recording fees are collected in the auditor's office, but the fees are set in statute by the state legislature in RCW 36.22. I believe it's 160 through 190, several statutes on this.
We're going to have to check you on that.
Yeah, fees are not set by the Board of County Commissioners nor the auditor. We have no control over the fees collected and we have no control over whether or not we collect those fees. We must collect, it's in state law. But I wanted to provide a brief breakdown of that fee. The current fee is $203.50. And it's distributed between various local and state agencies. This fee is not collected and held by the county. It's a popular misconception. So just a real quick breakdown. Of the $203.50, $11.89 actually goes to the county for preservation of records. And I have a fact sheet on this for anybody that would like it after the meeting. I'm happy to email it out. $8 of that fee goes to the state for preservation of documents. $47.58 gets dispersed between the county and our cities to fund local homeless housing projects. So the cities are already receiving an allocation of the funds that we're collecting, that $47.58. $181.11 goes to the state to fund statewide housing, homeless programs, rental assistance, and affordable housing. And then there's a weird $2.50 fee in there that goes to the state for growth management planning fund. It manages residential growth and environmental impacts. So that's a really brief breakdown of that entire $203.50. The county is not receiving and holding the majority of that, obviously. And of the fee that we do keep within the county for housing projects, that $47.58, there's already an allocated amount being dispersed to the cities. Any city that has a homeless housing ordinance adopted is already receiving an allocation. So just wanted to throw that out there. So
A quick comment. You have some of this on the county website, right? So you have a nice pictorial.
I do. So I have I can email it out, or if you go to the auditor's office website and you go to recording, there's a link on there that talks about fees. And I have an image that shows exactly which dollar amount goes where. So you know exactly where the funds are being dispersed. I appreciate your time today. I also wanted to talk about the access of public records. So while some comments last week were made that we surrendered our public records, that is true. In 2020, we remodeled our old vault, which stored public records, to make space for the elections remodel. But what I wanted to point out was that Cowlitz was one of the last counties in Washington state to do this. There were only 3 of us, now there's 2. And the reason why is that counties are just not equipped with the proper space and staffing to monitor those records. So this was not a difficult decision for me to do so. And let me tell you, the old vault, it was not fireproof, it was not waterproof, and more importantly, the auditor's office didn't have sufficient staffing to supervise the public when they were handling those public records. And let me tell you, when left unsupervised, the public can do some pretty rotten things, including tearing pages out of our history, writing notes in our history books. And to me, that's unacceptable. So yes, Cowlitz County surrendered these documents, but I'm a firm believer in access to records. So I did that with the caveat that we entered into an agreement to scan and index all of those records. They are currently being indexed. Currently we have 1980 to current is all scanned in and available free of charge. Just go to the auditor's office website to search public records, and they're all available for free. And soon, as we continue to receive new batches of records that are being scanned and indexed, we'll have all of our history available free of charge. So if if I still have a minute and if the public is interested, I would love to demonstrate how easy it is. There was a comment made last week about a survey that somebody was searching for, and I would love to demonstrate how easy that is to find if I can share my screen.
Before you do that, can you address specifically the claim that there was a vanished recording?
Yes, so I would compare Washington State Archives. I would ask people to think of that as a library. And when you, the public, are searching for a record, you have to have some search terms, right? You can't walk into a library and say, what did you do with my favorite book? You need to know the author or the title of the book. You have to have something to start the search. And Washington State Archives is really there for the public in unison with the auditor's office. So Arn, if you were searching for a survey, you would actually probably need to go to the auditor's office and ask for help. You know, you have the history on the document that you're looking for. You would work with my staff, ask for help in determining whether that record exists. We may not yet have it because it hasn't been scanned in yet. We may not yet have it, but we can determine if a record exists. And once we do that, then we are the liaison for you to go to Washington State Archives. We will give you the information that you need to contact Washington State Archives and say, I'd like a copy of this, again, for free. So we're here to help.
So do you, two questions are elicited. Yeah, if I go into your office today, do a recording, how long will it be before someone in the street can find that recording?
It's pretty quick. We are very on top of recording and indexing right now. So it could be the next day, probably at most a week.
Okay, so, and if that was a recording though that I was interested, and it's in the last batch that the state is processing, is it possible for a month or 2 months to go by before I can see it?
No, so like I say, we already have everything processed from 1980 to current, and everything that is continuing to process on a daily basis. We're on top of that. What we are lacking in Cowlitz right now is our truly historic documents, you know, from the 1900s to 1980.
So I think the case is still open then, that the gentleman complained that something was not there. How should he proceed from here?
So the gentleman didn't come into the auditor's office and provide data. The gentleman walked in and asked for a recording fee sheet and then came up and complained to the commissioners. So like, that's why I was explaining the auditor's office acts as the liaison, and we are here to help. If you're looking for a document, you come in and talk to my staff, and you have to give us information to start your search. Then we identify if a document exists. And then if we don't have it, we're going to send you to Washington State Archives with the information you need. He had none of that.
Do you know who the gentleman is?
Yes, I do.
Would you mind sending him a note of invitation or something like that? And that should close this.
Yes.
I would probably avoid the demonstration of the ease at the moment. Your thoughts, Mr. Dahl?
No, I agree with what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your
Thank you,
time this morning.
Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
In the absence of Dennis and taking into account some obvious facts, maybe you'd like to do the consent agenda?
Sure, I'll run over it.
Just a second. Comments to Carol. Oh, my apologies. Yes, we have a citizen commenting to you, Carolyn, or just commenting in general.
Carolyn, did I understand that you do not have a big pot of money called document recording fees?
You understand that correctly. And if I could share my screen, I can put the visual up there for you guys if you want.
Oh, no, I
Sure.
believe you. The second question is, you distribute that money to the cities. When, how often and when was the last time that distribution was made?
So I collect the fees and they go into the proper bank account, and it's actually the treasurer's office that disperses that, but that is a public record and we can get that information for you. So the dollar amount changes based on the amount that we collect. So you, as you can imagine, in 2020, when the rates were reduced and everybody was rushing in to refinance their homes, the recording fees that we collected in 2020 and 2021 were record breaking, which meant that the county not only got more money, but the cities also increased because they get a percentage. It's not a set dollar amount. It's based on, it's a percentage of what we collect.
If
And
I
that
could
amount.
flesh that out a little bit, the numbers, the county gets a dramatically large amount of
Yes.
money. So while the county collected, say, $1 million, the city of Longview, our largest municipality, collected maybe $60,000 or something like that.
You're spot on. And I think, like I say, that amount changes every year, but I do believe that in 2020 and 2021, I believe that the city of Longview collected roughly $50,000 to $60,000 each year from that pot.
Okay, and how often is that distributed? Is that once a year or every month, or how do you do that?
I'm going to have to follow up. That the treasurer does that distribution, so I'm going to have to follow up with her. But Larry, I have your contact information and I'm happy to get that information to you.
Okay, you both you and Aaron had said that the money received in the last couple of years was very high. What can we expect with today's economy in terms of a percentage of what was received last year?
Well, we have watched our document recording fees taper off. Like I say, 2020 and 2021 were record breaking. So we're coming back down to kind of a more normal, but building is still booming. So even though inflation is high and interest rates are high, building is still booming. So we still are seeing a record number, even though it's not the astronomical rate that we saw in 20 and 21. I'm happy to get all those numbers for you. We track them each month, Larry. So if you wanted to follow those, I'm happy to get all that information to you.
Okay, we've done a good job of putting security in the building. I'd suggest we put security on our document recording fees also.
We have a gentleman.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. I'll get the information from Larry. He asked the same questions I was going to ask. Thank you.
I'll just say, Larry, I'll go ahead and send some information out to your email.
And we have a hand up from the public. Nobody else from the floor showing up. So go ahead, Ms. Purcell. You're still muted. Oh, good.
Thank you. Thank you. And Carolyn, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for your work. I guess the question that I have is related to both the document recording fees, but also wanting to get a better understanding of the county commission's kind of vision for the budget. How are we going to be spending the document recording fees? And what are the investments that we're planning on making in our community? And this goes to a broader kind of citizen question, which is, how are we planning on going for any of the federal and state grants that are available for rural counties at this point in time? And what is the best way to expedite making sure that those activities are happening?
Yeah, if I may, that's an out of scope question at the moment. It is a perfectly legitimate question for the citizen, the comment period, which happens at the end of our of our meeting. That's the last item. So if you could hold on until then, we would all try to address that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I think we're back on to you, Mr. Dahl. Thank you.
Okay, consent agenda, we have three call for hearings, a public hearing request for January 31st, 2023 at 9:45. The presentation on ordinance amending chapter 11.05 of Cowlitz County Code to add portions of China Garden Road and Tower Road to the no unmuffled compression brake zones. Public hearing request for January 31st, 2023 at 10 a.m. regarding the amended 6-year transportation improvement programs for the years 2023 to 2028. And a public hearing request for February 7th, 2023 at 9:45 regarding the amended 2023 budget. We have, looks like a couple call for bids. Call for bid were Cowlitz County Health and Human Services Building Roof Replacement Project. Bid opening will be held in February 14th, 2023. Request for qualifications for February 27th, 2023 at 5 p.m. for hearing examiner services. We have a few agreements, contract bid awards, a completion letter approval for Woodburn Construction for the morgue facility, a completion letter approval to Rawhide Electric for the event center lighting upgrade. Original cost was $79,518.36. And on contract was on December 27th, 2022, the contract was increased by $22,946.38, including Washington State Sales Tax. Agreement approval with Metereaders Inc. for water sewer reading services. The 1,257 meters will cost about $1,500 a month to read. Agreement approval to Mark Scheibmeir to continue as Cowlitz County Hearing Examiner for a period of three months. An agreement approval between Washington State Patrol, Cowlitz Game Anglers, and Cowlitz County to conduct periodic firearms and other training and qualifications for its officers. The base annual charge for training sessions to be paid by WSP is $4,500. One resolution. Resolution approval for the county road project number 1617 for the Erick Creek Fish Passage project. Project cost requested for engineering and right-of-way acquisition is approximately $450,000. Some board correspondence. Affidavit of posting resume of the commissioner's proceedings for the month of December 2022. Letter dated 1/17/2023 appointing Harold Palmer Jr. to the Building and Planning Advisory Council. This is a 4-year term that expires July 31st of 2026. Letter dated January 17th, 2023 to Richard Walmsley, reappointing him to serve on the Cowlitz County Civil Service Commission. 6-year term, it expires December 31st, 2028. Letter dated 1/17/2023 to Mel Boultinghouse, reappointing him to serve on the Cowlitz County Rodeo Board. This is a 4-year term that will expire October 31st, 2026. And then vouchers. We had vouchers warrants in the amount of $3,707,801.49.
Thank you. At this point, we normally discuss amongst ourselves on the board any issues. Do you have any issues, Mr. Dahl?
I don't.
Okay, I've been asked to discuss items 7, we'll do that in a moment. There was let me go ahead then and ask the public to speak and specifically invite the gentleman on item number 7.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm gonna make this really short and to the point. Since I've been coming to this meetings last year this time, and all the ones I've attended, there's been an increase for contracts that were already bidded and awarded for dollars, thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's got to the point where, you know, enough is enough. We need to get someone or someone's to approve a proper contract constructions for these things. Adding an additional $23,000 to the contract that was already bidded to Rawhide, excuse my French, to the ladies in this room, is happy horse shit. Every week that I've been here, this has been done. You need to get the people, the person who are approved these contracts, either to dig their heads out of their ass, look at the contract and see what is not the least expensive, but the most practical one, which would include any unseen expenses. So you guys need to figure this out and get it done, and do not approve this extra $23,000 because it's bullshit.
That there's some interesting issues hidden or in there. Before we talk to the next citizen, maybe somebody on staff would want to address the details of this. Oh, it's all right. You can sit there. It's
Good morning, Commissioners. Will Tosted, Facilities Maintenance. While I didn't have a hand in this project wholeheartedly, I can address your concerns a little bit. So working for the county, one thing we have to do is we always have to accept low bidder. That's statute. That's what we have to do. With us being obligated to accept low bidder, sometimes that will include omissions from the contract for change orders. It could be driven from a different light, or when they go into the project, then they find out, okay, well, we bid to include the light. However, there was wiring that wasn't work. Those are all driven and those are all part of change orders. Sometimes you don't know when you bid a project exactly what is wrong with it. So although we bid to replace 13 lights, when they're going in and replacing these 13 lights, and that's just a number off the top of my head. You know, there's more once a contractor digs in that drive these change orders. Change orders are going to happen. It's a part of the process. It's also what happens when we have to take low bidder.
It also doesn't matter whether we get low bidder, it has to be a responsible bidder. You need to start looking through these contracts to think, okay, what happens if this is damaged or this was damaged? Not just saying, okay, here's 80 grand.
Yeah,
By the way, here's another 20.
If you're going to speak, you're going to have to come up here, but we're trying to pursue specifically not a general solution, but a specific solution, trying to figure out what the issue was here. So there are some pertinent questions could arise to the testimony, which is the electrical stuff is usually a bit easier to see than somebody building a bridge where you don't know what's underneath. So it would seem like more than a 25% increase in the change order is substantial. Is that something we asked them to change, or they said, oh no, I can't do the job because?
Like I said, I think that was a project that Kim Bocut did, so I can't directly speak on that.
Okay, is Kim Bocut online? maybe we'll talk a little bit and maybe Kelly can find Kim. So, and another point was, Rawhide Electric, they've done work for us at the event center any number of times, true?
That's true.
So there shouldn't have been anything that was hidden, if you will. That brings up the gentleman's point there where we have, surprise, a systemic issue and how we do things. And I don't know what is the correct approach. And the correct approach may be something that would require something in Olympia, something in Washington, DC. That's beyond our control. At the moment, we can only sort of police ourselves. I don't know what the answer to my next question is, so I don't know who would answer, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to turn the floor over to the gentleman at the podium.
Okay, just a note of
Thank you,
record
Will.
or protocol. Commissioner Weber was directed a meeting or two ago to send a resend letter back to the city of Longview. Did that occur?
I don't know specifically.
I
So-
missed the question. Can you repeat it?
What happened to the motion to rescind the letter that our chairman had sent to the city of Longview?
We have not made a resolution to rescind the letter yet. That is still in discussion.
Okay, what's the holdup there?
I would say multiple days, holidays, and people being out of the office.
Okay, so you don't know that there's a problem. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Gee, citizens trying to keep on top of us. I appreciate it.
Oh, so I know a buddy of mine who's an engineer on freeway stuff. And a lot of times when they're building a freeway, they will award the contractor a little bonus if they get done early. And they got kind of a graduated scale of that. But to always take this lowest bidder thing, and I agree with the other speaker, it's like every time it happens here every week, you know, there's like this contract. And then there's like, oh, well, and it was like the one that comes to mind for me is the Tower Bridge engineering thing. So we awarded a contract on a 50% design. And then right away, it's like, oh, well, we didn't get the right thickness of gosh dang piling pipe. And that's kind of ridiculous really to me, if you're an engineer designer guy or, you know, engineer designer, architect, whatever, that you wouldn't have that kind of data available to you right away. And that was like $100,000 of design upgrade. That didn't even cover the stuff in the field at all. So a way to try and maybe mitigate some of this cost overrun stuff is like, I like the freeway thing where they say, hey, you know what? Here's the completion date we want. If you get done earlier, we'll give you an extra little bit, you know, a bonus for getting done early. But I'm curious from a banking point of view, if you're awarding contracts, because I know you were in on a lot of that remodeling stuff down there, are those guys doing the same thing? Do they just like come to the bank and say, well, we found that there was a 220 wire and we needed to change it to a 110 wire and that cost you $1 million more. I mean, what do you say to people like that when they do that?
Yeah, I don't know that we had anything that big, but we did have change orders. I think we even factored in, I'm kind of speaking off the cuff, but a number of 10% comes in line that was factored in at the very beginning because we knew some change orders. Either stuff that we looked at and said, oh no, we think we want to go, now we're starting to see it, we want to go a little different route, or something they ran into in the building that they weren't aware of when they were working on it.
So when it comes to this Rawhide thing, were they putting in like whole new light poles, or was this like a change light bulbs kind of thing? What was the scope of the project there?
I don't know the answer. There's Kim. She can answer that,
Oh,
but
there you
let's be careful here because we're comparing apples and oranges. They're a very valid engineering development concept is a spiral is what it's called. You start out, you invite someone to your house and you say approximately what's going to cost me to, and then in the contract that would eventually involve getting to a contract. When somebody says a 50% drawings, that means like there's 50% uncertainty on issues in there. Some things haven't been worked out, but we need to understand where we are to make sure we have the funds to proceed and all kinds of stuff. It doesn't mean in that case that there's anything bad. Now, I will argue in support of your concern and the gentleman's concern that there are some pretty bad processes and so
Say
forth.
egregious, say egregious.
You're talking to a speech impaired person, but it turns out that egregious is easy for me to say because it starts with a vowel and it doesn't have a plosive in it.
Oh, I remember that the next time I ask you to say a word.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so hi, Kim. Maybe you'll introduce yourself and everybody will know who you are.
Good morning, I'm Kim Bocut. I'm the event director or event center director. Sorry, I was not on the call, so I don't have any history of, I just had a quick phone call to jump on. I was dealing with something else. So.
Oh, okay. The question is, we're taking a look now on the consent agenda, and it's the Rawhide Electric change order or change that went from some baseline up $22,950 for a total of about 80,000, and that's a huge increase, and it leads to a lot of questions. At the moment, I'm trying to focus specifically on this contract. That how do we explain that?
Sure. So to give you, so this project was a health and safety grant that we received from the state of Washington Department of Agriculture. And so when we applied for the grant, it was to improve the lighting in our parking lots and to upgrade the power in our barns. So we actually went out to bid quite some time ago and the bids came in all over the board, and we realized that our scope of work was not, it wasn't as specific as we needed it to be. So we went back out to bid and we received 5 bids, the lowest from Rawhide Electric in the 79,000, and then all the way up to 120 or 130,000. I don't have those bids in front of me, but it was a better range, and it was exactly what we needed. So when we awarded it to Rawhide, we had a meeting with them and addressed some of the concerns with the light poles in our parking lots. I believe there's, let's see here, 26 poles in our parking lots. And to just replace the bulbs, which is what the bid specified, would get us about 9,000 lumens per pole of lighting. And so we talked about some different options, and he said that there was another option, excuse me, that we could do that would replace the heads on each pole and give us 21,150 lumens, which over doubled the amount of lighting in our parking lots, which is really what we were trying to achieve to begin with, was to make our parking lots brighter and safer year round for events here, as well as our county fair. So I asked him to submit a substitution to change those light poles just from a light bulb to an actual new fixture, a head that would go on top of those. When he sent it back, it was still within the grant. The grant that we got was $98,000. It was actually $98,614. And so we were going to be a little bit shy of that grant, but we still have some tourism lodging tax funding that to pay the additional $3,000. So we went ahead and went forward with that change order. And so the lights that we have now, each pole produces 21,000 lumens rather than just 9,000. And our parking lots are very bright and very safe.
So this discussion happened after we signed the contract.
Correct.
I see. And just, I don't know if it's pertinent or not, the other bids, did they include heads changing? Or was it just apples to apples?
It was apples to apples.
So the only thing to change was when they came to you and said, you know, for a little extra dollars, we could put these new heads on there and you'll get more than twice the lighting.
It wasn't that they came to me when we started talking about the project, and once it was awarded and started talking about the different options, and he had made the comment that with the way the heads were, that there was a lot of different lighting options out there, but with the current, and I don't know that it's with the current fixture, that the brightest we could get would be 9,000 lumens. And I said, well, what are our other options? I mean, is it replacing poles? I don't know a lot about lighting. So I relied on the contractor that we chose. So that was kind of how that moved forward, was he brought some lighting options to me. And when it appeared that it was going to fit within the grant that we were awarded, and it's a health and safety grant, and it was going to potentially make things brighter and safer, that was the decision that was made.
Mr. Dahl, any comments?
What, no, that makes sense. It's really a customer requested change. It wasn't the contractor arbitrarily beefing something up.
Right. So in this case, if we have a problem, it's with the overall methodology, not with this specific contract.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this specific contract, knowing that we requested the change to
Yeah.
get the other lighting.
Oh, you're done?
Well,
Oh,
so I'm, okay, now. So you awarded a contract, $79,000, something like that, and to change light bulbs. Is that right? On 26 poles? Do I have that right? That was the initial contract.
Correct.
Okay, so you got 26 poles, 26 light bulbs. I'm trying to imagine how that gets to $79,000. You know, I mean, really? It takes that much to change a light bulb? How many? I'm not gonna
Oh,
say it.
I don't know what part of the contract was the power upgrade.
How much administration does it take to change 26 light bulbs? That's
It was a lot more than that, but yeah,
Mm.
point taken.
Good morning. I guess first, one of the things I heard, if I restate this incorrectly, please correct me, but the mandatory, you have to accept the lowest bid. I appreciate that, but if it comes with automatic approval of additions and changes, at what point in time, in this specific case, when you decide to change the scope of the work from, instead of direct change out for the light bulbs, which is what you went out to bid for, at what point in time is that change of the scope of work take place that you should have gone back out for bids again? In this case, the contractor came to you and said, well, here's some other options. If you went with those other options, should you not have gone out for bids all over again because you changed the scope of work?
Your point is well taken. I don't know, sometimes it's buried in the specifics. One of the hidden messages in here, though, is this was a grant. And everybody thinks of grants as other people's money as free money. So I just thought I'd throw that out. There's a little bit of my advertising.
Well, and I don't know at what point in time did the contractor know what the amount of your grant was? It'd be pretty easy to say, well, geez, I can hit the lid of your grant real easy.
Gee, think so?
I guess
Yeah.
I still
Yeah.
want to know at what point in time, if you change the scope of the work, what justifies or what, within what limits is the changes on this contract should have gone back out for bids?
Yeah. No, Steve, I don't know. I have a ready answer for that. My guess is it would be if it changes the overall bid by some kind of percentage. Yeah, now this one changed by 25%. That may be big enough to,
I would have thought that would have
Do
gone
that.
way past where you should have gone back out for bids,
yeah.
which is exactly what my point is where, at
Yeah.
what point in time should this been tossed out and started over again?
Do we have Mike Moss or Savannah Clement on here? Oh, let's see, what do we have there? Oh, we have Susan on board. Please go ahead, Susan. It takes a moment as she gets transferred to the panelists. So yeah, your question really amounts to, should we have a policy that states what you just described? And that's sort of where my inquiry would be here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you put out for bid a contract, in this case, you awarded it to the lowest bidder.
I got it. I'm gonna bump you and put Susan on.
Okay,
So if I understand correctly, your question is, when do we need to go back out to bid when we're changing work? So I have been advised by attorneys and WashDOT that you need to go out to bid when the work change is a significant change in work. So if you said you were putting water pipe in and all of a sudden your project becomes more of a sewer project, then you need to go back out to bid. So it's when there's a significant change in the type of work that you've bid that you need to go out for a new bid. I have never been told that there's a specific dollar threshold that you need to go out for a rebid, but it was a type of work change.
Wouldn't it seem a heuristic that says an increase beyond, say, 20% would automatically be required to go out again for bid?
I have never been told a number. I think if you doubled the project, yes, it might be prudent to do so. But if it's I'm not in Kim's case situation, but if it's a case where you've opened a gory hole and you need to refill it and you have to just get it done, that rebid would be very difficult. I know I worked on a project with a different entity where we had a situation like that, where we were doing a utility installation and we hit something that was beyond the contractor's capabilities because of the soils that were out there. We basically truncated the job, filled up the problem issue, and then rebid that section of the work because of unknown conditions. But it's kind of one of those case by case, and unless you significantly change the type of work, I've never been told I need to rebid it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, how to say, I don't think we have a particular issue right now. It's a done deal with this, and proper procedure was followed and so forth. And we have a reasonable explanation called custom required change order. But so I'm looking for, should we have a policy that says, I mean, we've heard any number of times, change orders can be up to 10%. I'm suggesting maybe we'd have a policy that says 20% needs a case-by-case explanation. Has nothing to do with the 50% estimate or the 50% design issue. That's an orange. I'm talking apples here.
That is certainly within your purview to set a policy that when we staff have a project that's hitting such a big issue, we bring it to the board to approval to either rebid or look at what's going on to determine if we need to finish the project and then do a second project. That would certainly be something that you guys could set.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
I don't know what the details of this contract were when you let it out. If it detailed that you were just going to try and increase the lighting to 9,000 lumens, and that's what people bid on. Well, electrical work was my background, so having a little bit of knowledge in there and no knowledge of what this contract said, I can understand that it would be beyond an immediate understanding if you just said electrical work at the fairgrounds. That'd pretty much cover any changes that would come up that were electrical. But at the same time, a cost increase that's in excess of 25% of the original bid kind of stuns me that just would sail through without somebody questioning what were the serious changes here. There were obviously other bidders. Believe you said that second time around you had 5 bidders that were involved. So I guess I'm surprised somebody didn't question what was the changes in that contract that suddenly would cause this big of an increase or big of a change without just coming back and going out for bid again.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't know the state of mind. The fact that it's gone out for rebid initially, at some point you end up, I just need to get the job done. And we stepped this far and somebody is doing this. So our discussions are, I think, beyond this particular contract. It's an example of something that maybe we need to address. And I made a note that we will pursue that in some form.
Does anybody know right offhand what caused the change the first time? I believe you said this went out for bid. You had a big range of bidders, and then all of a sudden you realized that you needed to go back out to bid it a second time. What was the change that made that happen?
If I could move you along, we could dig.
Okay.
We could spend a lot of time here.
All right. I've got enough
Thank you.
information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a quick note, if you're going to come up with some proposals, take into consideration the amount of the contract. You think about 2 people or a bunch of people have already spent a bunch of time coming up with a bid for a $50,000 job. I wouldn't belabor that point, just come up with some simple rules. But at the same time, nobody's going to keep bidding on a job that small if you keep changing the scope.
I'm sorry we're spending so much time on this. Commissioners, I'm kind of with Larry here. I used to do contracting bidding, and it is an exhausting amount of time, and you don't get your money back for that. And you spend a lot of labor, and most of these people are probably very ethical, have been in the community a long time, and probably are not corrupt. And a little bit of leeway on this is probably reasonable, especially when you have a situation where you're getting double the lighting. And the gentleman proposed it to her. It wasn't something the county knew about. This guy said, hey, we could make this better. And then we went and did this. That's not, he's going to lose his bid because he's trying to help.
So I've got a hand that's been up a little bit. Mr. Tim. You're muted.
Okay, I think this whole discussion about this contract to Rawhide brings up an interesting point. Bidding to governments in particular, but also large companies, is an exercise in frustration, like this one, the previous speaker said. And to cover for that, you end up doubling or tripling the amount of money that you would charge a commercial or residential customer, just for the frustration of having to put up with the bureaucracy. So that's number one. Number two is you look at how was this paid for? This was paid for by a grant. So again, like the one speaker said that it was a $98,000 grant. If this was going to a private business, it likely would have gotten done by $30,000 at most. So basically, and what did this money go to? Well, it went to more lighting. I'm not saying that there's need for more lighting, but doesn't this county have some more needs than changing the light bulbs at a parking lot that produced adequate light for whenever it was made? Now the standards have changed, so we want more light. Doesn't this county, could they have not used this $100,000 somewhere else or saved that for taxpayers? But instead, by taking these grants and approving these grants, we cause all of this horrible spending and inflation and cause this bureaucracy of the county be enlarged. First of all, by applying for these grants. Secondly, wasting our time talking about these grants. And what was it ultimately for? It was for increasing light on a parking lot that had adequate light when it was made. They wouldn't have been built if it hadn't had adequate light. I would like to bring to the commissioner's attention that maybe we should not let these people have these grants.
Well, I appreciate your comments. As I said, there are just a lot of process issues, and I don't have any argument against what you said. We have. Okay, let me rephrase. I've been trying to change the outlook in the county along the lines of what you say, but it does require a fair amount of thought on a case-by-case basis. And considering the circumstances, I think this is something, certainly the board must have approved it sometime in December or said, yeah, you can go ahead after that grant and that kind of thing. This at least is an infrastructure grant. Now, you might think the infrastructure is not worthwhile and worth the money, and someone's stated that it might have even been last speaker, how things are overpriced. Well, oh, the government's bidding. Okay, we know what to do here. That is an issue. Anyhow, next speaker.
Well, commissioners and ma'am, this is just not the only case. I'm hoping that maybe out of this discussion, you'll sit there and put in a contract that you can have 10% overage period. I mean, 25% is way too much. 15% is way too much. You need to look at these contracts. I understand the law says the lower bid, but there has to be some financial responsibility to getting the proper bid, because this is taxpayers' dollars, mine, yours, and everybody's in this room that is paying for this extra $23,000 already paid for a contract that should have been done for what they said. When you have these people sign contracts, they should be signed with an addendum that says, if you ask for additional funds for this contract, more than 10% of what the contract says, we're going to send it out to rebuilding. That's a simple solution to BS of overspending.
We got that. We're going to look into it. Let's not be too much more on the same thing.
All right.
We have another hand up from Samantha McDonald. You're muted.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. I just had a question. the person that was talking about the contract, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name, but how the discussion came back with the different heads and the different lumens. Well, two things. First off, if you think the lighting is adequate at the fairgrounds, then you should spend a little more time there, because it definitely is not. But secondly, did I understand her to say that the contractor came back and said that there was on the existing heads, they could put only 900 lumens versus getting different heads, and they could add the additional lighting for extra lumens? Is that what I was understanding her saying?
You want to go ahead, Kim?
So the, what was bid was some bulbs that would bring the lighting to 9,000 lumens. And in order to bring it to the 21,150 lumens per head, that that the heads would need to be replaced.
So
Rather
then,
than just changing the bulbs.
so then when we were asked what we wanted to do, we made the decision to change to the higher heads, not the contractor making the decision to bill us out for higher heads.
That's correct.
Okay, so why are we trying to throw the contractor under the bus then when we wanted something greater than what was originally bid, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, we're not trying to throw anybody under the bus here, whether it's the contractor or our staff. Our staff, in this case, I know quite good staff, great performer.
I'm not
no
saying it's
complaints.
not good staff. I appreciate her adding the extra lumens, because when we're out there doing rodeo stuff, it's not good lighting out there. So I appreciate the effort to make it safer for our kids while they're out there. But I just, I guess the idea that we need to set a stipulation on a contractor coming back and saying, I need more money for something, versus a contractor coming back and saying, these are the options you have with the limits you have, make a decision. We make a decision, and so we need the extra money. So I guess I just feel like it came out saying the contractor, and I don't know these people, so I can't speak to their character, but the contractor did something wrong when in fact we were given an option of doing something better, and so we chose the better, which costs more money.
Right,
And-
right. We've discussed this ad nauseum now. I don't think there's anything else to add to it.
Well, I wouldn't have said my question, sir, if I didn't have a question that was pertinent to what you were saying, because it was sounding like one thing and I wanted to clarify what it was. So I don't need to be put down fakes.
And it was clarified. Mr. Dahl, any other questions?
No.
Okay, any other questions on the entire consent agenda? There are two hands up. I think they're residuals. One is from Samantha and one is from Tim. Are there? Okay, sounds like they're both gone. Would you care to make a motion? Mr.
Sure.
Bell?
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda as has been gone over, along with the vouchers, warrants, an amount of $3,707,801.49.
Any more comments? So let me call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion does pass with apologies. So next are the motion items. And I'll find it eventually. Here we go. We have a motion from the Office of Public Defense. The motion is to approve an agreement with Daniel Morgan, Joshua Gooday, Grimm Law Group, and Edward Ted DeBray for presentation of indigent defendants charged with criminal offenses in the Cowlitz County Superior. See, that's a plosive. Court, thank you. So, Mr. Dahl, do you have any comments?
I do not.
Okay, I looked at the contract and there's some things that bother me. Essentially, the contract guarantees each of these attorneys an income of $120,000 a year. And if they handle 120 cases, it's essentially $1,000 per case, if I recall adequately. And if they accept, or if they do only 80 cases in a year, they still get to keep the other $40,000. And that doesn't seem like a good thing to have in there. In addition, if they go to court, the lawyers get paid in addition to the money, the $1,000 per case. Every day in court, they collect another $1,000. I don't know if we can do better than that, but for that, I hope that we have on board. Let me check. I cannot see right now. Anybody from OPD on? Ian Maher, are you there? Maybe Tina? Let me open it up for citizen comment at the moment, and we'll come back to it. Do you have anything you would add to that, Rick?
I don't really have anything to add. And, I think that's a valid point. You'd probably rather, I don't know how these contracts traditionally work with these folks, but you'd probably rather have a per case, a remittance per case type thing.
Yeah,
versus guarantee.
Right. It's calculated on a remittance per case, but then when you read the fine line.
Yeah.
Would you be able to contact Ian Maher?
Contact who?
Ian Maher. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Distinguished sir in a, is that a cardigan?
My question would be, a lot of times public defenders, because of the way they get paid, they have a great incentive to force defendants to plead when they're not even guilty sometimes. And so it's something to look at as far as making sure that when someone wants to go to trial, they can go to trial, and we have the unfortunate funds for that. And so the other is, why aren't they paid in a case-by-case basis versus a lump amount, whether or not they do, like you said, 60 cases or 120 cases, they should be paid by case. It seems to me. Thank you.
Okay, I see this civil prosecuting attorney's office is logged in. Does that mean they have something to address here? If the civil PA is trying to talk to us, I don't hear anything. Okay, well, why don't you go ahead?
Do we know how many of these cases they handled last year? I mean, on average, over the last year or 2 years, how many have they handled every year?
The only thing I know, or I suspect I know, which means I don't know, is that we don't have sufficient attorneys for public defense. And some of the rules recently have changed, so I don't recall the details, but it puts a greater burden on having to provide a public defender. More cases qualify automatically. And so going back in history is a little less useful in those circumstances.
Well, if you're, I guess, if I understand what you're saying, you're signing a contract that has a fixed amount, whether they service anybody or not.
Correct.
And so if historically they're collecting $120,000 a year, but they're never going to court, I find that a little troubling.
Yeah, that is pretty tough to take. And I don't recall, I may have skimmed over that part wherein if the attorney refuses to take a case, or if this or that, or if they decide they're going to go to vacation in Brazil for 3 months, how do we deal with that? Since we don't have, oh, Ian's on board now. Ian, you're muted.
Yes, apologies, Your Honor. I'm simultaneously in court as well, but good morning.
Oh, okay. Do you want, one thing we could do is put this, just to table this for appearance in the motion agenda next week or the week after?
Due to the import of this getting signed and put into place, I'll make this a priority, and I apologize for tardiness.
So
That's
you
what
want to
I know, and
continue?
I appreciate that.
So you want to continue with this at the moment?
If that's okay, yes, I'd like to proceed.
Yeah. Rick, did you want to ask questions? You want to let? Why don't you go ahead? We have a citizen asking a pertinent question.
Okay, great.
Well, I guess my question is roughly how many cases did you handle last year?
Okay, that's a very good question. To give you exact numbers, I would have to respond later. So we have basically a breakdown of about 11 attorneys. So 7 of those attorneys handle felony matters. Last year, I would say per attorney handled well over 100 cases. So that would be over 700 felony matters easily. I could tell you that our felony attorneys handled.
If I might interrupt you, Ian,
yes,
we lack perspective there.
Okay.
On staff, you have 11 attorneys, is what you said?
Yes,
okay, that's on staff.
Calendar 2022. Yeah, not correct.
Right. This is for additional contracts for additional staff.
Yes,
or additional equivalent staff.
So the contracts that we're putting forward are for attorneys outside of our office. So last year we had 3 main conflict attorneys. That'd be Kevin Blonden, who's now a judge. We had Ted DeBray, who was a former employee of the Office of Public Defense. And then we had Dan Morgan's firm, which consists of 2 attorneys. So we're working on a cap, the Supreme Court of the state of Washington and the Washington State Bar limits us to 150 felony points for a given year to still ethically provide effective legal counsel. For those attorneys, Mr. DeBray went right up to that 150 point range. So that probably included over 100 felony cases for Mr. DeBray. Mr. Morgan's case, since there are 2 attorneys there, he well exceeded 200 felony cases assigned to him. And then for Mr. Blonden, it's kind of a mixed. So the amount we assigned him and the amount he actually concluded are different because towards the end of the year when he became a judge, he had to stop being assigned matters because otherwise he'd basically just be holding onto the case file to give it back to us once he assumed the bench. So he probably is on the lower end of those, and he still was probably assigned roughly about 100 cases last year. So if in kind of general terms, between those 3 attorneys, I would say upwards of 400 felony cases were managed by the people assigned the contracts before the commissioners today.
There's another aspect in there too, isn't it? You're trying to hire additional public defenders?
in our office, I am definitely trying to hire some. We've had some turnover due to the kind of the backlog. What happens when the court shut down due to COVID, a lot of cases did not get settled for an extended period of time. There were no jury trials. So attorneys here, their caseloads just continued to grow despite the usual outlet that the trial provides. It kind of adds a barrier that makes a defendant either decide to go to trial or decide to make a plea negotiation. So we've had turnover here due to the large workloads. My answer to that is to continually hire here. We have some open positions now, but before the court, before the commissioners, excuse me, you'll see that there's contracts for additional people that have not been contracted before. Mr. Gooday is one of those. He's a former employee who just actually stopped employment at the Office of Public Defense at the end of 2022. Mr. Morgan has come back to the table for a new contract. Mr. DeBray is returning for a new contract, and we've actually now contracted with Mary Grimm's law office, the Grimm Law Group. They had previously had a municipal defender's contract, but they now have a couple people on staff who can handle felony matters. So that's why we've given them this kind of half-size contract in comparison to the other folks that are doing full-time felony work.
Did you have a follow-up?
That answers my question for now.
Okay.
So Ian, I'm just trying to get clear in my head. So
sure,
the way I'm hearing this come out is we guarantee 120,000 for the attorney and 1,000 per case, or is the county coming out ahead? Or are they running? If we just paid per case, would we end up paying more than the 120 or would we not?
So that's kind of it's a hard question to answer without a long speech.
Yeah.
I think we come out ahead with this weighing system that's kind of involved at, I think it's page 2 or 3 of it. And that's because plainly put, certain charges require a lot more work. When someone's charged with they've been trespassed from Winco, they go there nonetheless and they shoplift. That's actually elevates to the level of a burglary, so a felony charge. That matter, even though it's a felony and could lead to a prison sentence, is a rather straightforward fact pattern. Whereas, an allegation of, unfortunately, but say a sex crime from 6 years ago, well, that requires much more investigation, much more witness interviewing, processing. You're going back in time, you're talking to people about events that occurred 6 years ago and so on and so forth. So the weighting, the money equivalent is this contract sets up, and most counties have it, the more, the bigger load to carry as far as the work, the higher the compensation. So that's why there's kind of a variance of how much a given attorney gets paid for a given case. But in the long run, my office can't handle all of these cases because we also have conflicts. We have, clients that might be witnesses against other clients. We can't represent both clients. So we are coming out ahead in that they have to go somewhere, and we're still paying people at a much more reasonable rate to do this work outside of our office than we would if they hired counsel. It's much more expensive. If the courts here had to go to Clark County to hire an attorney, their rates are much higher. So in the end, I think the answer to your question is yes, we are coming out ahead. We are still getting really good legal defense at a very reasonable rate of pay.
Thank you.
Yeah, by the way, I think contracting is, I'm not trying to suggest anything bad about the contracting. We have someone on the floor with a question.
Well, while I got you here, I'm curious, you say you have 11 attorneys, is that right? Does that work for you?
Yes, so we currently have 3 attorneys to do the math for you. We have 3 attorneys doing district court. So that's anything from traffic infractions to amount to a criminal citation up to a 4th degree assault. We have 1 attorney that does therapeutic courts only. So drug court, mental health court, people that are civilly committed in the hospital. So that's 4 attorneys, and then handling felonies, including juvenile court, we currently have 7 other attorneys on staff. So in the end, 11 attorneys total, yes, but kind of broken up into different branches of our local court system.
So what is the like average pay for one of your employees there like that?
So based on seniority, it's a range. When somebody just comes into the line of work, and I'll pull it up so I don't misquote the price, if you can bear with me real quick.
You just throw out an average, that might be enough.
Yeah, that's that, I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I mean, an average, I think in between the low end of the range and the high end of the range, it's about $70,000 a year. And that would be a net pay. A gross probably closer to 75, 76,000 a year.
Okay, so, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you didn't. You're fine.
Oh, okay. Well, personally, I'll say I got a little skin in this game because I'm for this because, and I'll explain. One of these law groups is my law group. And so if you're paying them, that keeps my retainer low because that's basically what we're paying them here, a retainer, right? And so, if we're helping my law group along and my retainer stays down, it works for me. Finally, some bureaucracy that came my way. Thank you.
So we have a person online, Tim Sutton. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. The previous speaker, not the immediately, but the person who presented this said about what is causing these high numbers of cases that need the additional attorney time. And one of the things he mentioned was the thefts at Winco, for instance, where a kid goes to Winco, steals something, gets caught, and then they go, and Winco is next to the high school over there. So then the kid goes back there, steals again, and now Longview Police charges them with a felony instead of dealing with it. They have the discretion to choose how they charge it, as far as I know, but they choose to charge it as a felony. Well, why do they choose to charge it as a felony? Well, because it saves money to the city of Longview. It's like completely heartless, in my opinion, because this kid or these kids, it's not rare from as far as I understand. These kids are youngsters and make some stupid mistakes like that. Yes, I'm completely against crime, but we also have to have a heart toward these people these kids. And instead of the city of Longview charging them with a misdemeanor, for which they can be thrown into prison or a jail for a year, instead, to save money, so that they don't have to pay out of the city of Longview's coffers, they throw it at the county, and the public defender is now mandated to defend this person. And I'm all in favor of public defense. It's absolutely necessary. And but I think we have like a large systemic problem where we have the cities, in this case, City of Longview, I don't know if Kelso does it too, and make felons out of these people who are just coming out of high school. I mean, that's just heartless. And is the county encouraging this behavior by giving this money instead of maybe, I know these people need to be defended, but it's also the prosecutor it can make the choice of charging these people or not. And if the prosecutor says that no, you guys got to charge this as a misdemeanor, and the city of Longview can pay for it themselves in the municipal court instead of the county paying for it in the superior court. and at the same time be much more humane to these stupid kids who still don't have the life experience. We can't simply just throw money at the problem and ignore the underlying issue. That's all I had.
And just
Yeah, yeah.
if I can clarify and potentially just make it clear. So the arresting officer responds to something like you described where someone's been trespassed. That's what that extra element is what makes it elevate to a felony. A police officer writes their police report and makes an arrest, refers that to the prosecutor's office. It is a deputy prosecutor in the office who makes the charging decision. So the fact patterns laid out before an attorney at the prosecutor's office, that prosecutor decides, I'm going to charge this as a felony, or I am going to charge this as a misdemeanor, or what have you, just to clarify. So the police officer on the street themselves are not the sole cause or sole source of a charge that results in a felony.
That's exactly what I said. I said that it's the prosecutor who makes those decisions, and the prosecutors, when they are elected, it's an elected position. They want to stand out as we are tough on crime, and that tough on crime is extremely expensive. It is also extremely expensive. The human cost of it to these kids is just incredibly expensive. Don't we have any heart?
Yeah, I just want to say there are lots of things that we would like to change. Most of it we can't. Part of what I like about these discussions, it brings them out in the open.
Yeah.
But it's beyond control of the board or of Ian, how to change all the rules. He just has to figure out what's the best job he can do on behalf of the county.
The county commission has the purse strings that can reduce money to these prosecutors so that they can only charge the really truly necessary crimes.
I should have my civil prosecuting chief civil deputy attorney contact you. Anyhow, yes, that's a valid comment to make. It's a rather dangerous and onerous path. I've investigated that. So we have a comment from a citizen at the table.
Yes, and follow up on this, there's a lot of mystery in the amount of money that we, the citizens, support for all of these legal services. So my request or suggestion would be that when we have something like this, $350,000, $400,000, it would be well worth having a report, 10 or 15-minute report on what happened in the last year in cases, et cetera, and a little forecast so that we all, as you and as citizens, have a little understanding of the money that we're spending for these legal services.
Yeah.
Transparency is right.
I know, I think that's a very good suggestion.
Yeah.
And I hope the electeds and others are in department heads are taking that into account. We really, should I do this? Yeah, I'll do this. In the past, the department heads and elected viewed the board of county commissioners as just a hurdle, a rubber stamp that they had to earn, as opposed to as being part of the solution. Now, the caller on the phone suggested we hold the purse strings, and that's a very complicated use because, well, I could go into that. That would be a digression. At this point, let me ask Ian, there are a couple of things that bother me in the contract. One there is I don't see enough protection for the county. I don't see performance metrics, and I don't see, I'd love to have a contract that guarantees me $120,000. And I ask everybody in their contracts to have an escape clause, and I don't know that we have an escape clause here. Sounds like once we sign on the dotted line, if we change our minds, we're still obligated. I would like, if it's okay with my with Mr. Dahl to have you go back and see what you can do more in there to protect the county from lack of performance with cause, without cause. It doesn't matter. Just at the end, all that counts is that did we get what we asked for? There was another point there that I don't recall. Mr. Dahl, would that be all right with you?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So with apologies to you, Ian, I know you wanted to get this done right now, and maybe we can work on it between today and in the next week.
Yes, I'll just let you know, commissioners, we have yet to end a year where we didn't go in excess of the 120 kind of rubric that we're talking about here. We usually go right up to 150. So they're last year, for example, Mr. DeBray basically had to email me early December and say, I cannot ethically take any more cases. So even though this is set out, the escape clause really, we vet these attorneys prior to making the offer, seeing them, working with them, and knowing what products, how they perform in court. Mr. Gooday himself just fought for a 4-day not guilty verdict last week. So I know they provide high quality defense, and the idea that we would need to maybe ourselves step out of the contract before it was satisfied, just in practicality, I don't see that happening. If somebody were not to meet the ethical standards of an attorney, that would be, I think, a basis that it wouldn't be stated in the contract, but would be a basis to stop assigning them cases, because they would run afoul of the Bar Association, and that would be a basis alone not to further assign them any more or any cases for the contract. But I think what I'm picking up on is maybe language specific to if a given attorney's performance doesn't meet the professional standards or something along those lines, that OPD would hold any attorney within our office to, then we could then stop assigning cases. Is that?
Or there are many unknowns out in the future. And you can think of as many you want, like maybe one of your attorneys decides to move to Brazil. I'm not sure what we would do in that case. I'd like to see something like that in the contract there. But what you're asking me to do is something that the government has done often, and it's, to me, we've got to put a stop to it, which is, trust me, I'm special. I'm a member of the bar. I don't do these kinds of things. How do I answer the next contract comes along and says, I'm a businessman. It's clearly in my best interest to keep you happy. So this rescission of the clause, this rescission clause is not applicable, and I find it offensive. I mean, how do I adjudicate those things? That's what I'm faced with. I've got to treat everybody that comes across our desk essentially as equal.
Understood. And if there was a business guild like the Bar Association that basically could rip away a business person's license for unethical practice, I think there would be kind of an equity among the professions. But I mean, if an attorney commits malpractice, they themselves are removing themselves from the contract. They can't legally take any more cases.
Well, let me be a little more aggressive with an anecdote. A classmate of mine from college went eventually, after getting a MS in aeronautical engineering out of Stanford, went to U of O for his JD. And when I spoke to him after he had gotten his JD, just shortly, I said, how'd it go? How was the bar? Oh, bar was fine, except I did not pass the ethics. Now, this is a man that I would have left everything on the table for him to safekeep on my behalf, and it would still be there. I learned then that the definition of ethics is apparently distinct from the people making the evaluation. So that's one point then. And we know that the structural organizations are really not in favor of the public. So for example, if I have a problem with a judge, who do I take it up to? Another lawyer who's also a member of the bar, and that goes before another set of judges. It is not a level playing field. I cannot be honest with the constituency and not insist on what I would call a level playing field. Now, it may be in this case that there are extenuating circumstances and I'd be committing suicide for the public on a special principle issue. Well, then I'm not so impractical that I wouldn't review that and discuss that. And I've said before on some issues, I hold my nose and I sign. Any comments, Rick?
I'm along the lines you're talking. I just, every contract I've been involved with, there's some kind of performance clause in there. And I don't know that anybody should be held above those. I realize the bar, kind of pick some of that up, but there's business entities that they can lose their license over things. I mean, there's other stuff out there that they can lose, but they're still in the contract. There's still that provision. So.
Okay, so would you like to move to table this for how much time do you need? In 1 week?
Yeah, there are performance clauses within house, so I think I have some language I can draw on. So I think a week would be sufficient. I'm myself going to be in a jury trial this Thursday and Friday, so we're talking about Tuesday next week.
Yeah, or let's make it a week after that then, and that way you won't have to go into emergency mode.
Okay. Yeah, that should be fine. I'll just let I keep saying the court. I'm so used to that. I'm sorry. The commissioners know we are assigning attorneys, clients kind of as a assumptive kind of process because they're coming in like you wouldn't believe already this year. I'm comfortable saying I'd have this ready next Tuesday at the same time, if that's okay.
Well, let me check with Mr. Dahl. I've assumed, and maybe that's not proper, that you were continuing to assign, and we have not ever walked away from our obligations in the past, even though it's not under a contract. And I think your behavior in this case is pretty reasonable. So I have no problem. Let's say we decide to change the contract based on something, even if we were to change the dollar amounts, that wouldn't be applicable going forward, not going backwards. So whether it's next week or the week after should not really impact you.
Okay.
I just want to make sure you have proper time and feel comfortable and give us time to chew on that also.
Understood. And I'll be certain to circulate any language before bringing this forward again, just to hopefully expedite and
So
address.
you want next Tuesday?
I think I could have it done. Yes.
Okay.
Our next Tuesday meeting is January 31st.
Oh, it is. Okay. Well, the 31st it is. That's fine.
Okay. If you want.
You need to make a motion to table until that date.
I would make a motion to table the agreement approval with Morgan, Gooday, Grimm Law Group, and Edward DeBray for consideration on January 31st, 2023.
And I
Any
wasn't
other comment from the public?
Yes, I wasn't sure if the person at the citizens table had a question for me.
Yeah.
Just a little perspective from the public. I think the last survey I saw, we hold the bar just below used car dealers. So yes, we need protection from you.
We have another comment.
Sorry about that. You guys
Cool.
are very patient today. Thank you. It's been pretty arduous. Yes, the gentleman that commented about being soft on crime because it's merciful. It's actually not merciful in the end because you end up with people as repeat offenders and getting people stopped early and getting them rehabilitated as far as on the right road is the best way. We have chaos all over the country because of soft prosecution. And so I'm not for that. Now the charges go, I think we need, and I think people need a proper defense, but also proper rehabilitation. Thank you.
And another comment.
Okay, I just need to ask.
Closer.
Okay, I just need to ask, because I'm slightly familiar with this, but not much at all. First off, when you gave us the number of cases that.
You have to speak more. Thank you.
When you gave us the number that each lawyer would have, okay, it sounded very, very large and very impressive. However, I do realize, because I worked with the public, that a great many of these are very similar where you can handle them within a very short time. So the amount of cases really wouldn't take as many hours as what you're presenting, I believe, in that the fact that a lot of these are so similar that they can be prosecuted quickly because it's a very open and shut case. Therefore, the number of 400 would be equivalent to maybe 150 and easily handled. Am I wrong?
Well, and I'm of course not here to argue with you at all. The element I think you're not taking into calculation is the human element. So yes, fact patterns might be the same. Individual defendants each are their own person. So with that person comes an entirely unique history that brought them to that point with contact with law enforcement. It requires a completely different approach on each one. The amount of malpractice that has occurred because people take what you're proposing, a cookie cutter approach to criminal defense, and just, what are you charged with? Oh, I know how to process you because I have so many of you. That's what leads to people not looking into the investigation, not figuring out what the best answer for an individual defendant is. Is controlled substance use behind this? Well, maybe drug court is the avenue you need to go. Are you homeless? Well, maybe we should look into housing for you and some sort of other avenue. Is mental health part of this? Okay, well, I need to get you in touch with a doctor. We have mental health court. So no, you cannot take 400 cases and just say, well, they're all the same. I'm going to treat them all the same. They are not all the same, because each individual defendant requires completely different treatment. If I took what you suggest and brought it to, let's say, the medical field, and somebody came in with a runny nose and a doctor just said, oh, you have a runny nose, you have a cold, I'm not going to run any other background checks on you or anything else, the amount of people that would die from undiagnosed issues would be through the roof. So no, you cannot take a certain fact pattern and just automatically say, I can get you from A to Z, skipping all the letters in between, because I've had it so many times. Each case requires an entirely individualized approach. And we talk about ethics, that's the ethical side of it. You cannot just fast track a case based on what's alleged. I don't know if you read the local newspaper recently too, but we're also taking the police officers strictly on their word. These police officers are human too. They make errors. They themselves commit crimes that take years to come to light. So no, we have to take a very skeptical approach to each and every individual case. Cannot treat 400 cases so quickly that you're treating them as if they're about 100 cases.
I agree. I agree with everything you've mentioned. And I really don't want you to be incompetent at all. I was just thinking that
Closer.
there might be a way to streamline some of the work that's being done. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a partial answer to that too is the law of large numbers. If an attorney gets to spend less time than average on one case, he's for sure going to be spending more time than average on another. I'm assuming the numbers you came up with are basically your that's a fair estimate, and large numbers kind of will help that. By large numbers, I mean large number of the cases. Okay. We will go to I guess that was it.
You just need to go to a vote on the table motion.
Oh, there is one. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to table this issue until January 31st, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes.
Ian, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it very much.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, thank you. And I do thank the citizenry for the input. It's unique. It's really the only place I can receive it. So it's appreciated. Thank you.
So at this point, it's time to open up the meeting. I don't think we have anything else. Do we have a miscellaneous we need to address?
I don't have any miscellaneous today.
We're open for public comment. It's a hard word.
Howdy, commissioners. No, here I am again. This time I'm gonna address something about the person that said 10%.
Don't forget to come real close to the microphone.
Here, has this better? Here we go. The problem with having a fixed number on a contract amendment is the fact that you really always can't tell what the job is going to be if somebody comes back with a contingency. Having it rebid can be costly to the county, costly in time, and costly to the contractor. And it's not, you're going to have fewer people really anxious to bid when you put them through the living H on trying to justify themselves when they've already given you a low bid. And I would say that not a percentage number. I thought what she said was reasonable, that if it's a different type of work and is really has changed quite a bit, then yes. But it sounded to me like in this case, I mean, this one, we spent a lot of time on it, but it sounds like the contractor merely said, hey, you could do a better job with this, a little bit more money. And they decided to do that. And that's really, to me, not corrupt, not a rebid. That's just somebody giving the best advice they can possibly give. And I use Rawhide Electric myself. I did my box and I like them, but that's not the issue. It's the issue that don't put them through H over nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you had somebody online.
I just got an email from the chief civil deputy. So
Well, let's hear it.
I was just trying to find it. The thing about email from the PA's office is I really have to think through whether it's available for transparency or not.
So you don't know if it's going to be transparent. If it's something that's a secret message.
There are a lot of things that end up properly hidden. Am I in favor of the kind of secrets that Edward Snowden disclosed? Can you imagine if we didn't have a government that did all those things, we wouldn't have to be so concerned. Anyhow.
I think I agree. Not sure about that one.
Okay, I just got the okay from Doug Jensen to read that email if you'd like me to. I haven't. read
You
it
seemed
myself.
interested. Let's hear what it says.
You're copied on it too, aren't you, Rick?
I'm sure I am. I haven't got it pulled up.
I usually, in case there are plosives in there, I usually turn it over to somebody else. Okay.
You want me to read it?
Commissioners. Sure.
Commissioners, I appreciate the discussion on change orders since unexplained monetary expansions on bid for public works and on procurements can trigger unsuccessful bidder complaints and audit reviews from the state auditor's office. regarding adoption of a county policy on change order, the accepted approach by SAO, I don't know who that is, and WashDOT.
That's the auditor's office
Okay.
from the
And-
state.
And state enterprise services is to have best practices in place to guide decision-making and handling of change order requests rather than imposing a bright line monetary or percentage cutoff on withholding change order approvals or going to rebidding. Any number of factors can trigger change orders and requests for additional monies, including supply chain increases, mandated wage increases, imperfect project specifications, or unanticipated site conditions or installation difficulties. Reliance on a more adaptive best practices policy also benefits employees in crafting their calls for bids or RFPs and having a mind's eye on what unanticipated circumstances may justify a change order and avoidance of imperfect project specifications or designs.
Thank you. Yeah, the only thing I think that maybe I disagree with the attorney is when I give, I think a suggestion of 20% doesn't mean it automatically triggers a rebid. It means you better look at this more closely and see if you need it. So I think it's in keeping with everything else. I just have to be sure that any language we come up with, in fact, I should look, you're right. It would not be imposing a bright line. It would just be adding into what a best practice would be.
All right.
Okay, you had something you were going to comment on.
Yeah, well, I figured I'd let you go because it's more timely. I don't have anything to that stuff exactly, but I just want to tell a happy story that happened to me in the county. Went to the dump the other day, dumped my load. I'm checking out. I open my wallet and the guy looks down and he sees my card. And he says, "Are you a veteran?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Your dump was free." And it's like, I don't know. I don't think you guys have anything to do with that, but God bless waste control, right? I mean, free. If only I would have known that like 10 years ago, I would have saved millions of dollars. Yeah, well, I think it's starting a little business. As long as I keep my loads under $14, I'm good. So that's just what, just want to have a happy moment right there. I wanted to go on about a point of logic that came up last week when I was speaking with the jail lady, right? I forget her name right now, but you know,
Ms. Fox?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it is just to point out a little point of logic, right? Is so she made this statement, if I understood it correctly, was that sometimes they get people in there that are too dangerous to the other inmates, or I don't know if they call them inmates at the county, but you know, other jailed people.
Their clients.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, the way it's going. So they'll get somebody that's too dangerous, too much of a threat to other criminals, right? So they don't book them and they just let them go back into society, you know, back onto us. And that's just kind of a point of logic that I've been shaking my head about all week. I think I got her statement right, but that makes like, doesn't that make no sense? Isn't that more of like, I don't know what you even call that. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, you're not living up to your gosh darn responsibility, you know?
I'm trying to remember what.
Okay, I don't remember specifically, but I know I've heard that before. I don't recall when exactly, and I got the same reaction to it as you've just offered.
Yeah, I mean, you've got rooms where you can lock people in a room, but they're too dangerous to the people that are in the chow line or something. I don't know.
But underneath that is the fact that Marin cannot release anybody from jail without a judge's order. So in fact, there is Marin wanting to speak.
Oh, there we go. But I figured she'd want to chime in on that one. But I'm just wondering how often does this happen? Or did I even understand that right? Because it went by kind of quick. Anyway, where's she at?
We're waiting for Marin. Are you the only one there? You're not really, Tim, trying to suggest that whatever we say from time to time isn't completely logical?
Yeah, most of the time, actually.
Good morning.
Good morning, Marin. Thanks
Morning.
for coming on.
I'm sorry, I forgot your name earlier.
That's all right. I'm not sure what exact comment you were referring to from when I spoke last time. We don't return people away because they're too dangerous to be housed with other people. We're accepting all felonies and almost all misdemeanors other than theft, other than DWLS. So that's not accurate. Sometimes we can't house inmates with other inmates based on the safety of both inmates, but that's not a reason we wouldn't book somebody.
Okay.
And
well, I
it's
must have
true that if
misunderstood what I thought she
that
said.
inmates in there only get out with permission of the court, if you will.
Yes, that's correct. We once an inmate is booked, it's judge's decision. The courts decide when people get out. The jail does not decide.
Okay, well, thanks.
Yep.
I think there were.
Hey there, I just need to address something that I have strong emotions about. And I'm not sure that Ms. Purcell is still on listening.
I
I'm
don't
hoping-
think she is. She said she had to leave and I don't see her any
Well, I'm-
longer.
Okay, I'm hoping somehow this gets back to her. We had an incredibly vile, misinformed letter to the editor, article in the Daily News.
Don't forget, you need to pull that microphone closer to you so
Okay.
that you're comfortable with it and it doesn't
Okay,
move away from you.
I'll do that. We had an incredible, vile and misinformed letter, article in the Daily News just the other day. And I want to address this because I think it's very important, and I'm hoping that Ms. Purcell also gets this. Our commissioners voted down the monies to the homeless shelter because it was a flawed plan. This person who wrote the article did absolutely no interviews that I know of with either one of our commissioners about this to know their plans, their very workable plans that they wanted to put in place instead of what they knew would fail. It's been proven in other communities, cities, this plan of the homeless shelters will fail. They have other ideas that are very good. And this article here was misleading and vile. And it's only written to incite the public against our two very good commissioners, which I really, really was upset about. Also, Ms. Purcell, you're talking about getting grants and we need grants. Do you understand the nature of a grant? You can take it and you think you've got free money. Lady, you don't. All grants come with obligations. There are ties. And guess what? Those grants were raised by raising taxes on our community and the state. Now, if you want to raise our taxes, that's your opinion. I don't think it's wise in the face of recession that's coming to do such a thing. The Longview City Council just did it last week, and they will find that their community is going to suffer. They might even have more in these camps because of that. So anyways, I commend our commissioners that I'm sitting here looking at right now for their strong stance against spending money unwisely when there's community proof that there are other options besides the homeless shelter. Thank you.
I know there's other people speak, try and answer her question a little bit. She was asking, you know, what, if I remember right, she was asking what we had plans for on the document feeds. And I can tell you a couple things that I think are in the works. One, we have and I don't know that it's been confirmed yet, but we have a request for an RFP to be put together we spent quite a bit of time, I think last Wednesday, talking over parameters we wanted to see on that RFP. And if I remember right, we have a tentative date of February 1st for us to get to review the RFP to go out to the community to so they can take a look at it and address some things. We had specifics on youth. We wanted them to concentrate on youth in that RFP. So there is something in the works. This isn't done yet, but we're pretty close to having it there. I've been spending some time with building and planning because the whole affordable housing thing. And basically I've taken the census data that showed per capita income of about 33,000 and household income of about 65, 66 right in there, and tried to figure out things we can do as a county, as building and planning, the citizens, to help people in those areas actually become homeowners. And our team at building and planning has really taken off on this, and I think we're gonna come up with some thoughts that'll come to a workshop. Some of that is really trying to define what rules do we need? Are we being too strict? Are we forcing people out? Do we need to let them do a little bit more and do some of that? And part of that is a thing my colleague has talked about a long time, is seeing if we can't, once they get in the place and done it, can we, the fees that they cost to get in there, can we find a way to reimburse some of those for the people that you would consider you know, down in those income levels that really struggled to get a house? I think my personal opinion is you put somebody in a home, whatever you may give up some fees on the front end, but you're gonna recover more of that over time as they have a place to live and they improve their properties and they do the things homeowners do. So I think there are some things in place, and just to try and answer that question earlier, that so you're kind of aware what path we're kind of looking at.
Yeah, I'd like to add a little background there. Before your time, we had a person named Joe Gardner who was a commissioner. And there was one specific instance early on in this process when we were presented with an ILA or MOU. There was a blank piece of paper, and we rejected that. But either immediately after that or sometime before that, the big discussion was we would use the money if we saw a plan that showed something different than what's been going on previously here and across the nation. And that was our stance then. Now, we have heard tremendous statements about things that really, in the end, you look at them, don't really work out. We've been struggling with homelessness across the nation, and it just really isn't. There really isn't a solution with the current assumptions. And what this Joe Gardner and ARN agreement was essentially is, you show us something new, and we'll be interested in it. I recently received an email from someone said, "Well, have you seen the camp along Camp 2, Alabama Camp 2?" And it's like, I mean, my indication is you cannot claim on day 1 or even day 20 that you have a successful program. A successful program can be assessed at the end of a year, maybe at the end of 2 years, much higher chance that you'll do a proper assessment. We're all ears if Teresa Purcell has something that fits the bill of something new.
Yeah.
It's got to take all kinds of things into account. It's not like Cowlitz County has a stranglehold on solutions to society. In fact, enough said there. We have a citizen. Oh, yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I wanted to make 2 comments. First, on the final issue that you tabled, In response to Mr. Suitnan's concerns, I gotta believe that in this day and age, a high school kid caught shoplifting at Winco probably received several warnings before he's ever charged with anything. And then when he is charged, I gotta believe the prosecuting attorney and the police probably minimize that charge again with additional warnings long before that kid ever sees a felony charge. He's gotta know what he's walking into. He's gotta know that he's potentially affecting the rest of his life, depending on what his choice of a career might be. And so I really don't have any concerns there that they're being overzealous with just charging people willy-nilly with felonies. The other
Yeah,
thing,
if I could comment on that, I think,
Go ahead.
I know the gentleman who made the comment, and I think in general, what happens if you have an F on your report card, finding a job thereafter is very difficult. Maybe it should be that way or not, but I think that there are people who have euphemistically made mistakes, gone to jail, served their time, get out, and now they're finding it very difficult to be employed. At least it used to be that way. I don't know how it is now, but I can see that that was a concern.
I agree. Okay. The other one is on the fairground lights. I've worked at the fairgrounds at the fair booth, or had a fair booth at the fairgrounds for the last several years. And been there very late at night, into the wee hours of the morning a couple of times. I don't know how often that parking lot gets used. I mean, it's not like Safeway or Fred Meyer's where you work 24 or 7 days a week. You're open till 11 o'clock or midnight, and you have to have parking lot lights out there. But to have all of a sudden this brilliant parking lot lights where with my experience, I'd tell you before you could stand there and read a newspaper, I sure as hell did not need a sunburn. So I don't know that jacking up and I know they're LED lights and highly efficient and all that good stuff, but my goodness gracious, I don't know that the justification was there because we had a grant to just suddenly go spend that money. Anyway, my 2 cents.
Yeah, just one comment on that one. I think the board has to share some of the blame for it proceeding to the extent it did. So it's not like, anyhow.
Well, I'm not trying to,
Right.
it's done. And I'm not blaming Rawhide or I'm not angry with them. I think they probably did a hell of a job for the county. And I'm not trying to challenge the issue of that one project. My whole concern is there not some type of a guideline where if all of a sudden the scope work changes, just as a general rule, shouldn't you guys have something that all of a sudden you go, hey, wait a second, here's a little red flag that we need to take a look at. Do we want to proceed or should we go back out for bids?
Right.
I was just challenging the process, not that one particular job.
Quick question for you. Is the lighting in the room here adequate in your opinion?
Yes. I don't know, what is it we were trying to do? I can write, it's bright enough for me to read, it's bright enough for me to make notes. Should it be brighter? I think as time goes by, we keep thinking it has to be brighter and brighter. My God, Abraham Lincoln worked with firelight and candlelight. What do we need to have here?
But look what he did. He started a war. Oh, never mind.
Maybe he solved one.
So how many lumens on average are we putting out here per fixture?
Oh, I don't have a clue off the top of my head. You're probably.
The reason I ask that is that it's really hard for us to know how much 9,000 lumens is out in the open versus 21,000 lumens out in the open. And at some point, it just needs to be brighter was the assessment. And you'll get arguments on both ways. I find the lighting in the room here is a little on the dim side, but it may be because of the cataracts I have.
And I find as I get older, I want a brighter light when I sit down to read. And if I'm going to spend time doing it, I get eye strain if it's not bright enough for me. So I understand that changes with age.
Well, okay.
And also the brightness you're going to get is how tall is the pole? How high up is the light when you start putting that up there? Thank you.
We have two people with hands up. Let's go to Shannon. She's had her hand up the longest.
Oh, thank you. My arm was tired. Good morning. I'm glad you got that. Anyways, Rick Dahl, I want to thank you for coming out to the city council meeting last week. I think it was dirty politics that happened. And I agree with how you handled yourself. I think that there's a lot of entitlement happening in my city, in my town. And I want to let you know that a lot of people are standing behind you. So never back down. Always continue to stand for what you believe in. I was very disappointed to see how that went down, to see the mayor do that to you. And I just want you to know that you've got supporters regardless.
I appreciate that. I'm a big boy. I know those type of things happen, but my stance has never changed from the beginning. I've always said my biggest special interest group is the taxpayers of this county, and everything that I look at is looked at through that prism. So I just get up there and tell them the truth, and it's hard to argue with truth. I don't have any stories. We're just going to tell the truth.
Exactly. And I appreciate that. The man of his word. I like it.
So
And-
Shannon, as long as you're on and you say you're a citizen of Longview, and of course I know
am.
you are. I know.
Yes.
I have to pretend I don't know you.
Okay.
There was a resolution passed by the city of Longview. Do you have a take on that? Keep it succinct.
Well, my thought is there never should have been this, well, let's do this. Let's go to plan A. Oh, plan A failed. So let's go to plan B and let's do that. Let's just go to putting the horse before the cart, and we're going to just go and spend all the money. Where'd the money come from? What money did they use?
So I'm speaking about the resolution where they want to go it alone on this homeless housing thing.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
money that they want to use on that. What money are they going to use? They're using our money.
Well, the
And then the
resolution.
money they're going to come to the county still. They're still going to get money. They still plan on getting money from the county.
Well,
And
their resolution is, instead of the county deciding where the homeless funds are going to go, they're going to say, according to statute, our fair share of the funds, and I don't know how to discuss what that is
that's
going to
because they're-
come directly to us, and we will not depend on the county for anything.
Yes.
And I have sympathy for that spot, but I also have sympathy for the fact that we're commissioners, not of just the people in the county outside the municipalities. We're commissioners for the entire 111 or how many thousand that is today. And it's going to be a difficult step to decide what the right thing is.
But with that resolution, there was another tax. And they have raised our taxes. It seems like every time I've gone in to a meeting within the last, I don't know, maybe the last 3 meetings, there's been a tax raise. And a lot of the people aren't understanding that they're raising the taxes because they mismanaged funds. Maybe I'm speaking out of line, but basically when you're going to say, well, I'm going to fund this village here, and we're going to call it Hope Village, and I'm going to fund this, and oh, well, we didn't get the funds that we thought we were going to get. But we've got to pay for it. Well, we've got to take it out of this fund and we've got to take it out of this fund. So, you know, we've got our water, sewer and garbage is going up. All these new little taxes are going up. You know, we've got the new one because they are partnering with the housing authority and then we've got this resolution. And then they just raised our our license fee. Well, that I understand because of the roads, but you know, all they're doing is making it worse. And what they don't understand is they're going to need more pallet homes because they're going to cause more people to be in that position.
Okay, yeah, I've got another person wanting to talk. I don't know how long they've been waiting, but anyhow, I thank you. I hope to meet with you and talk in some more detail.
Well, you know
on this.
where you can meet me is at the center, community center
I think I know where that is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Shannon.
Yep. Thank you.
So Tim Sutton, you're on.
Okay, comment. Obviously, I was misunderstood by a couple of people. The idea here is not that those kids shouldn't be punished. They do need to be punished. What my point is that the city can choose to charge them in the municipal court and cover the expenses. None of those kids are thrown in a prison or jail for hardly any amount of time, if at all. And even a misdemeanor, which the city can charge them with, carries a sentence up to 1 year in jail. So therefore, it's not that the punishment is any different. The punishment is exactly the same. What's different is after the punishment, these kids who are given a felony, for the rest of their lives, they're fighting, they're not getting good jobs, they're having to deal with this issue. Whereas if they had a misdemeanor, it's far less of a thing in their history. Therefore, they can get jobs, they can be productive citizens far more easily than those stupid kids that are charged with a felony. But what I'm saying is that these prosecutors want to win their elections and they want to show that we were tough on crime. But they never tell that it was those 18-year-olds who we charged with felonies for stealing a candy bar or whatnot a couple of times. And that's the point that I wanted to make is the county is funding this bad behavior on the prosecutor's part by giving all this money to the prosecutor. And the prosecutor being in cohorts with the police and the city of Longview, accepting these things. They could simply say, no, you guys deal with that in your own court, charge it appropriately. That's my point.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. People might not know that a misdemeanor in the municipality ending up in jail time of any kind is charged to the municipality. If it's a felony, it's charged to the county, or I should say the county pays or the municipality pays. That has led to all kinds of issues in the past. We've also had big discussions in the past about why is the jail so expensive? And we have contracts with the municipalities, and that's always a point of discussion. So the idea that there's finances or economics driving some of the decisions is just inescapable. Thank you, Tim. So we meet this afternoon at 1:30.
1:30.
And is there anything significant that we should call to anybody's attention? It'll be the usual perfunctory HR. And okay,
Yeah.
so tomorrow, Wednesday at 1:30, We're gonna have HHS here. You might find that one interesting. We're gonna just try and have a open discussion. Not sure we're gonna try to solve or pass any ordinances or anything like that, but there will be a considerable amount of discussion, I would assume. Seeing no other hands, seeing no other people approaching. Once, twice. This meeting is now adjourned.